Hello, everyone. Welcome back to X-Raised, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. My name is Miles, and I'm back to sit down once again with a leader and have a conversation that really hits at the heart of sustainable growth, long-term trust, and how businesses can do better by design, not by accident. If you've been part of the X-Rays community for a while, today's guest will sound very familiar and for good reasons. He doesn't just talk about standards, sustainability, and responsibility. He spent over 4 decades helping organizations actually live them. He has worked across global industries, helping organizations turn big ideas like corporate social responsibility, stakeholder trust, and continuous improvement into practical, certifiable systems that work in the real world. He's also a founding member of the Global Reporting Initiative, a strong advocate of ISO 26000, and leads an internationally certified education and training organization focused on one thing many businesses still underestimate: the power of people. Joining us once again on X-Rays is the Managing Director and CEO of ACI Global and e-Quip, Ian Erskine. Hi, Ian.
Hi, Miles, and Happy New Year to you and all
Happy
your
2026.
family, and to the whole of the X-Ray team, and also all our guests. And 2026, I believe, is going to be a quite a remarkable year. There's so much that is happening in the background,
Mhm.
and so much to keep up with, and that's something that no doubt you, young Miles, will keep me on my toes, getting the message out. And yes, and really looking forward to today's episode because it's very much on that theme.
Mhm. Me as well. I'm really looking forward to this and to many more episodes this year. And I'm happy to have you back here on the show. Again, today we're continuing a conversation we know our audience really values: stakeholders. But this time, we're connecting the dots between stakeholder relationships, ISO 44001, ISO 26000, and how organizations can build a fully certifiable integrated management system that's driven by capability, not just compliance. So let's do this, Ian. Why do you think so many organizations still struggle to manage stakeholder relationships strategically, even though they know how critical those relationships are to long term success?
Yeah, well, I think, and I come across this quite often, and I think it's this philosophy that, for argument's sake, human resources. You know, we get an organisation gets to a certain size, and they say, "Look, it's too big for us to have our own HA department. We'll hand that out to a so-called specialist." And well, that's fine, but you've really got to do your homework. You've got to make sure that, and ultimately, it will need to be a collaborative partner, because if you can't collaborate between each other, sooner or later, you'll end up going separate ways. And that's where the big thing came in some years ago now. And first of all, I learnt this when we were a founding member, very early founding member with the Global Reporting Initiative. And even at the very early days, there were some people that joined the GRI, and they felt, well, okay, we'll get our message and tell everyone what to do, whether it's over in Papua New Guinea or wherever. And I was always of the belief when we joined that it was going to be a case where we would collaborate with other partners, for argument's sake, in Papua New Guinea and places like that, learn their culture, their way of doing things, and then to collectively, through collaboration, work together to put systems, policies, and programs in place for the betterment of both parties. And that's basically what we'll be talking about today. A lot to do with collaboration and a lot to do with conform to comply, because
Mhm.
the 26,000 standard from ISO is not a certifiable standard. It's a guidance standard only. And basically, that's the same as the Global Reporting Initiative. They have their own standards as well, but it's very much determined on you want to conform yourself, right? And then you will comply. And that want to conform is the critical factor which is determined by how well you collaborate between each other on an ongoing basis and truly understand each other's mission and their vision,
Mm-hmm.
their corporate philosophy, very much their work culture, and it ultimately gets back to the beginning of where we started our journey, Miles, and that was an understanding: do it once, do it right. Understanding we're all human. Yes, we all make mistakes. Yeah, if it's a mistake, let's look at why it happened. So we do a root cause analysis and look at it and classify it as an unforeseen risk or a foreseeable risk and manage it from that point of time. So
Mm-hmm.
just recapping, that's very much why it is critical and again, quite often overlooked by organisations as they grow in time. And yes, I've used human resources as an example. Another one is training. Quite
Uh-huh.
often organisations grow to a certain size. Oh, we've got to have a registered training provider. And we say to them, well, you don't really. You can use our e-Quip platform and basically own it on a license fee. And yes, it's overseen by a third party, ACI Global, and our facilitators and experienced people, but they still ultimately own that in a form of collaborative relationship where we both understand where each other's going and we have our rights and our wrongs and our way of doing things, and that's the way we survive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a guided standard. Thanks for clarifying that, Ian. And collaboration is key indeed. And I notice stakeholders are often acknowledged in theory, but not managed with the same discipline as finance or operations. And I think a lot of leaders will recognize themselves in that gap. And building on that, once organizations realize there's a gap, then the next hurdle or challenge is structure. Good intentions are great, but they don't scale. How do standards like ISO 44001 and ISO 26000 help organizations move from wanting better collaboration and social responsibility to actually having a clear, structured, and certifiable way to manage stakeholder relationships?
Well, particularly the ISO standard 44001, that is very much structured on a set of guidance documents, guidelines for the organisation to be able to have a look, customised for themselves. And it's very much based on a relationship management system plan so that both parties get together, they collaborate on their mission and their vision and their way of doing things. They collaborate, okay, so how are we going to formally start it off? What type of agreement are we going to put in place? And understanding that, maybe down the track we may need to go our separate ways. So let's talk about having an exit strategy in place,
Mhm.
okay? Because this is what happens with all organisations. There is a certain time where you need to go your own way, and both, particularly 44001, is very structured in that way of doing things. And available at the end of this podcast, we'll provide a link for people that they can actually download our relationship management plan. That's
Mhm.
the one we've put in place for ACI Global, but it's eminently customizable. They can copy and paste it into a Word document and adjust it to whatever they would like to do. And in that plan, like I said, it's very structured. It's a step process each of the way. And there's three key areas where you look at the rationale, why you're actually going to form a partnership, a way of reviewing and monitoring it, and if things do start to go adrift, how are you going to address them?
Uh-huh. Yeah, and we'll
And then we've notched it in with the ISO 26000 standard because that's very much to do with corporate social responsibility.
uh-huh.
But again, it's not a certifiable document, but obviously it does need to be understood that on an annual basis or biannual basis, audits need to be done to ensure that the structure, the process, and the procedures are being operated effectively to ensure that it continues to run. And what we often talk about on our shows together is we need to do this so that we achieve sustained success.
Yeah. And we'll
Yeah.
make sure that we include here the link to your relationship management plan. And
Yes.
what
Yes.
I really like about all this is how it turns something that feels intangible, like trust or responsibility, into something measurable and repeatable. I guess that's when it starts to feel manageable instead of overwhelming. And that naturally brings us to people, Ian, because systems don't run themselves. Of course, ACI Global's approach includes training, an appointed internal team member I learned, supported by your ISO industry experts to develop and implement these systems, right? So, why is that internal capability building so critical? And how does it change the way stakeholder management works day to day inside an organization?
Well, it's critical because because the olden days or the old days, and still happens today, where consultants seem to think that they've got a package or a bolt-on package that they can hand over to the client and it is perfect for them. That is never the case. Basically, the way we structure it is it has to be structured on the organisation themselves. There needs to be the ability to have someone in charge of those systems, and that's where the person assigned actually develops and implements the system as they go along. May take them 6 months, may take them 12 months. Generally, we can have a system in place within 12 months that is ready for them, particularly with the combination of quality and environmental and health and safety. They can then have an integrated business system ready for them to have it certifiable, right? But it's most important to understand that at all times, it's the organisation themselves that is driving not only the implementation process, but the development and ongoing improvements of the systems that we put in place. And it's all built around ISO 44001, Global Reporting Initiative, and ISO 26000. They're the core non-certifiable standards apart from the 44001, and that's where we concentrate on ethics, doing it once, doing it right. Again, having the accountability, the organisation themselves are accountable. Specific people within the organisation are obviously answerable and accountable within the organisation to how that is implemented and developed.
Mhm.
But other part where we step in and provide the whole package is we provide a industry expert and standards expert and people that have experience in the Global Reporting Initiative. We put specific people alongside the appointed person from the organisation, and that gives them that extra benefit of knowing, well, there's not a lot I know about this, but in time, that's the object of the collaboration between the facilitator and the mentor and the assigned internal auditor or internal appraiser. And that's how everything is developed.
Mhm. Right. And I think that sounds really sturdy. And that's an important point because, from my lens, you can feel the difference when capability lives inside the organization instead of, walking out the door with a consultant. And I think that creates ownership, right? Which is powerful. So, when organizations do implement an integrated stakeholder and relationship management system, Ian, especially one aligned with frameworks like the GRI, what real world benefits do they actually start to see? Whether it's trust, reporting confidence, risk reduction, or even commercial outcomes, what tends to stand out most for your clients?
I think what stands out most for the clients is that they have that trust in the person that they have specifically appointed within their own organisation. So they obviously that's where the trust starts, but also there's an understanding between ACI Global and their appointed industry expert that goes in and works with that organisation. And again, this is where it's very, very important because again, this is where the collaboration comes in. At the very start, the industry expert, he has a fair bit to learn about that organisation themselves.
Uh-huh.
And what better way of learning that is from an appointed person within that organisation, backed by the directors and the senior managers, right? So he sits there with the team, understands their processes and way of doing things, and then matches that which is what is required for the conformance of, particularly ISO 26000, right? And that's the way they move forward. So you get that trust. And again, we go back to that word collaboration, and
Yeah.
it's ongoing. It just doesn't goes to a point when the system's ready, if they want to certify it, if it's ready, or if they just want to keep it just conforming, that's fine. But that industry expert is our advice is that they are retained on a retainer because things do change. And particularly now with technology, the way it's moving so fast, and in some respects, I think a lot of countries now are realising actual fact it is moving too fast. So lots of countries are now not only pausing, but they're stepping back, having a look within. And this is where the challenge I have to all the organisations I work with, my challenge is they, as quickly as possible, should be getting in touch with their industry associations, their local members of parliament, and letting them know, yes, we're working with this within our own organisation to see where the benefits of the additional technologies can be put in place, or the controls we ourselves need to put in place, because we don't want government intervention
Mhm.
to add additional unnecessary steps and links in the chain that just make systems more and more complicated.
Uh-huh.
Because I think that's one of the benefits. Well, I'm firmly convinced that one of the benefits of collaborative working relationship is that you have a structured approach to doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you do things is always to do it once, do it right. There's laws which have to be maintained. Yes, you do that. And you work within those parameters on an ongoing basis. You carry out your reviews. And that way you maintain a collaborative working relationship system that is eminently changeable, eminently has the ability to have bolt-ons to fit for, add-ons to the collaborative partner as they move forward. They might need to add a different partner and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That gives them the ability to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Structured approach.
Yeah. Collaboration with trust as the foundation. It's
Yes.
interesting how often those outcomes connect back to trust and confidence, especially when they understand the GRI. Confidence in, I mean, trust and confidence in reporting, in decision making, and even in conversations with stakeholders. That's something many businesses underestimate until they experience it. And finally, as expectations around transparency, sustainability, and collaboration continue to rise globally, Ian, where do you see stakeholder management heading next? And how is ACI Global positioning its training and integrated systems to help organizations stay credible, compliant, and competitive in what's clearly a more demanding business environment?
This is the interesting link that's coming out more often now, in that people are beginning to realise that they have to collaborate together. They can't just do this themselves.
Mhm.
And I'll give you an example of that. When we were quite new in our relationship with the GRI, and we were approached by Papua New Guinea to continue or take over some training that was being done from another country, but wasn't being carried out satisfactory to the authorities in PNG. So we're invited to take over the training, and that's basically where we started at the very beginning. We realised that I would have to hop on a plane, go over, have a chat to the authorities, because their education standards and requirements are very different to Australia, very different to the European market and things like that. And they were quite impressed when I said all the training that we would be undertaking with them would be, myself would be up the front, but it would be all based on what their needs were. And that's basically the critical function that has to be collaborated together. And again, that's where you get the partnership's going, and a partnership is far stronger than two individual corporations ultimately going in the same directions. If you can do that together
Uh-huh.
in a collaborative way, and again, that's very much the way ACI Global has structured its business. We've structured it to work together with alliance partners,
Mm-hmm.
not to actually, okay, let's get together with that alliance partner with the object aim, a few years down the track, we're going to take them over.
Mm-hmm.
That's not our aim. And you learn so much more from the collaboration between each other than, okay, we're big enough now, we can take them over and put them all under the one banner of ACI Global. It doesn't work that way.
Uh-huh. So collaboration instead of competition.
Yes, and just to back up what we we're saying in reference to the package, we'll also have a link to the package where they can go in and they can see from the very start of the program to the basically the not the final part of the program, but the stage where the organisation has the ability to go and have their systems certifiable.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have that package via a link
Yeah.
available to them. And yeah, so we're quite excited to do this because we've been asked many times, how can we link ISO standards with the Global Reporting Initiative? And
Mm.
I point them to our website, and they often come back and say, "Oh, you've already linked ISO 26000 with the Global Reporting Initiative." Yes. How soon can we be certified to 26,000? And that's where it becomes interesting, where we
Mhm.
say, no, you won't be certified to 26,000 because that's a guidance standard only.
Yeah.
And that's where it becomes very exciting. After they get over the first time, oh, I won't need to be certified. No, but you will need to be able to have a system in place so that it can be audited, can be reviewed, and can be improved on an ongoing basis.
Mhm.
And that's where, again, the collaboration starts.
Yeah. So it will be continuously improved. And that future focused view is incredibly valuable, Ian, especially for leaders who know change is coming but aren't sure how to prepare for it in a very structured way. And I'd like to highlight that when organizations invest in their people and give structure to their values, through collaboration, as you mentioned, everything else seems to follow from sustainability to performance to trust. So, Ian, thank you so much again for making time for us once again, despite your busy schedule, and for sharing your insights with us so generously as always.
No, thank you so much, Miles. And yes, as you pointed out, it's very much people focused. And if you don't collaborate between each other, ultimately you end up going your separate ways. And again, this is how families survive, talking through issues, understanding each other's
Different.
different ways of doing things, because we don't always do things exactly the same between us. But
Right.
you have to understand we're all different people, we're all people focused, and if you have that philosophy, ultimately we will succeed.
Mm-hmm.
But if we step away from that philosophy, from having a simple misunderstanding and say, oh, no, no, let's forget about that, let's put a machine in place to run that role,
Mm-hmm.
you'll just make it harder for yourself because there is
Yeah.
absolutely no way at the end of the day where a machine can understand every different intricacies of people because you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
We are all so different in the ways we do things, but ultimately, at the end of the day, we're all going in the right direction,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to better ourselves, wanting to better our organisations. And like we said, that's where we talk about collaborative relationships involving two of the main standards, 44001 and 26,000,
Mm-hmm.
and along with the Global Reporting Initiative.
Yeah. And I like it that you related to how a family runs,
Yes.
understanding the differences instead of going away from each other and doing something else. So thank you so much. For those watching or listening who want to explore how ACI Global can support your organization, whether through ISO training, personal certification, integrated management systems, or stakeholder and sustainability frameworks, you can connect directly with Ian and his team at aciglobal.com.au. Thank you as always for tuning in and for keeping us on air. We'll continue bringing you conversations that challenge thinking, spark ideas, and hopefully make business just a little more human. Catch us again in our next episodes. This has been your host, Miles with Ian, reminding you to stay focused, driven, and inspired with X Raised.